Welcome back to the deep dive. Sometimes, to really understand a topic, you've got to look at viewpoints that are, well, a bit outside the mainstream.
Exactly. And today, that's precisely what we're doing. We're focusing on this one really critical document.
What's it called?
It's titled The Illusion, Apple's Fake Innovation Circus.
Yep.
The author, Carol Mergel, takes a really skeptical look at recent big tech announcements, especially from Apple.
Okay.
He basically dismisses them, says it's not real innovation, more like a grand illusion show, tech theater. He claims he's showing what's behind the marketing magic.
Gotcha. So our job today is to kind of put on those critical glasses ourselves and just unpack the specific viewpoint. We want to pull out the key arguments Mergel makes, the specific criticisms. What are the nuggets of knowledge or insight he wants you, the listener, to get? We're not saying he's right, but we need to understand what he's arguing.
Absolutely. We'll go through how the document critiques various features, what Mergel says is really happening, from his perspective, behind all the marketing talk. Ready for a look behind the curtain?
Let's do it. So where does Mergel start? What's the first big target in this document?
He kicks off with what he calls the main new interface idea, something he labels liquid glass.
Liquid glass. Sounds fancy. But I get the feeling Mergel isn't impressed.
Not at all. He immediately calls it a see-through gimmick. His take is pretty blunt. It's basically just transparent backgrounds with extra steps.
Oh.
And his reaction, pure sarcasm. The document just says revolutionary. You can practically hear the eye roll.
Yeah, that tone seems pretty central to this whole document. And does Mergel see any immediate problems with this so-called liquid glass?
Oh, definitely. He links it straight to your wallet.
Oh.
He calls it a wallet drainer.
Mm.
The argument is pretty straightforward. A completely new interface. Well, new interface means new devices.
Ah, okay. So he's saying it forces you to upgrade everything.
That's the accusation. Upgrade everything. He presented as like a calculated move to push hardware sales. Planned obsolescence, basically, just wrapped up in a design change.
That's a serious claim. And what about the name itself? Liquid glass?
He jumps on that too, calls it classic marketing magic. Taking simple transparency, slapping the name liquid glass on it. He calls it a genius move, but you can tell he means it cynically, like packaging old wine in new bottles.
It's interesting how much he focuses on the language, the marketing spin, not just the tech itself. So let's get into the weeds a bit. What are the practical problems Mergel sees with liquid glass? He mentions core features, right?
Yeah, he breaks it down. First up is what he calls translucent confusion.
What does that mean?
He argues it makes things harder to use, like can't tell which app you're using, that's the future, he says, sarcastically, of course.
Yeah.
He describes your brain scrambling to process overlapping text.
So too many layers just make it messy.
That's his view. It breaks clarity instead of enhancing it.
Okay, that sounds potentially annoying. What else?
He builds on that with multi-layer EM. He paints this picture where you can see through 5 apps at once. But the catch is, you comprehend none of them.
So seeing more means understanding less, in his view.
Exactly. His snarky takeaway is it's perfect for those who enjoy visual chaos and cognitive overload. It directly challenges the idea that this transparency actually helps you multitask or process info better.
Right. And there was a third point about liquid glass.
Yeah, dynamic morphing.
Yeah.
He connects this visual effect, things constantly animating street to performance issues.
Like battery drain.
Precisely. He says you can literally watch your battery drain as everything constantly animates. And he questions the whole point, asking, who needs stability when you can have wobbly buttons?
That question kind of sums up his frustration, doesn't it? Is the visual flair worth the hit to battery and maybe performance?
That seems to be his core question there. And he doesn't stop with just liquid glass. He also critiques related things like adaptive color and environment settings.
Okay, so adaptive color and environment. What's the issue there, according to Mergel?
Well, first, he calls it color chaos. Says your screen now changes color randomly. And his verdict, you guessed it, so innovative. More sarcasm.
He sees it as distracting, not helpful.
Seems so. Unpredictable. And brightness is another big one for him. He talks about blinding light mode, notes it's now 40% brighter.
And his take on that is?
Super hyperbolic. Perfect for permanent retina damage.
Wow, okay. Obviously extreme, but I guess his underlying point is maybe too bright isn't always good, could be uncomfortable, maybe even bad for your eyes, from his perspective.
Yeah, he uses that extreme language to really drive home his perceived negative. But then he flips it and also criticizes the other end. Can't see anything dark mode.
What's the problem there?
He claims the icons get so dark you'll tap randomly hoping to hit something. So it's like the dark mode isn't actually functional because things become invisible.
So, too bright is bad, too dark is bad. He doesn't seem happy either way with these adaptations. And all this dynamic visual stuff, he argues, leads to one major problem.
Yep, the battery. He lumps his whole section under the heading battery assassin.
Patchy.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
His observation is simple. You watch your battery percentage drop in real time. And then, of course, the sarcastic punchline. So exciting. He clearly thinks these visual upgrades are killing battery life.
It sounds like Mergel sees these as major practical issues, not just minor quirks. Does he broaden the critique beyond just the visuals?
He does. He looks at other system-wide interface enhancements, as he puts it, with quotes around enhancements.
Okay, what else does he point out?
Even small things, like the time display. He calls it the microscopic time display, saying the time is virtually invisible. Maybe a small detail, but he presents it as a failure of basic information design. You can't just glance and see it.
And notifications? Those are pretty important.
He goes after those too. Warns about vanishing notifications, claims you'll miss important texts with our new transparent alerts.
So the transparency look actually makes alerts less effective, easier to miss.
That's his argument. Transparency, for Merkel, seems to be the enemy of usability in a lot of these cases. Then he tackles managing all this across different devices.
Oh yeah, what's the problem there?
He complains about inconsistent controls, says you need different gestures for every device.
So the user has to learn multiple ways of doing the same thing.
That's how he frames it. Learn them all, he says. It kind of undermines the whole idea of a smooth, intuitive ecosystem if basic interactions keep changing.
Yeah, that doesn't sound ideal.
And his summary for these system-wide changes, it's pretty cutting. He says, forget about a unified experience because the cohesive appearance across devices means you'll be equally confused everywhere.
Ouch. So he thinks the updates actually make the multi-device experience worse, not better, just uniformly confusing.
That's the takeaway from his document, yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears. The document also tackles Apple Intelligence upgrades. I imagine Mergel has strong opinions here too.
Oh, absolutely. This is where the critique gets maybe even sharper. He kicks off by calling it all pretend AI.
Pretend AI. What does he mean by that?
His main argument is that it's just the same old features with AI slapped on the name. He's basically accusing Apple of jumping on the AI bandwagon, rebranding existing stuff without adding truly new or powerful intelligence.
That's a criticism you hear sometimes, isn't it? About the AI label being overused. What about privacy? That's usually a big selling point for Apple.
Mergel is deeply skeptical about the privacy protection aspect.
How so?
He includes this really cynical quote in the document. We're definitely not sending your data to ChatGPT. Trust us. The sarcasm just drips off that line.
So he clearly doesn't trust the privacy claims. He's implying data might be shared or privacy isn't as robust as they say.
Exactly. It's a pretty serious implication. And he also claims these AI upgrades wreck performance.
A performance hit? How bad?
Well, Mergel claims a 3-month-old iPhone crawls like it's from 2010 after the update. It's a really dramatic claim that the new software actually makes fairly new hardware unusable.
Wow, okay. Again, maybe hyperbole. But his point is that these features are badly optimized and slow things down significantly.
That's the argument. And he doesn't just stick to general claims. He gives specific examples of features supposedly failing. Let's talk about his critique of live translation.
Okay, I remember this one was pretty specific. How does he describe it failing?
Right. He sets it up. You type a simple message like, want to hang out later.
Standard stuff.
Then he says, the AI processes it. And while it's doing that, according to Mergel, your phone gets incredibly hot, reaches lava temperatures. He links the processing directly to the phone struggling.
Okay. And the result. What does the translation actually say?
This is the kicker, according to Mergel. The recipient allegedly gets, I want to hang you with later, alligator.
Oh, wow. That's not quite right.
Not even close. You can see why he'd be critical if that's the output. His conclusion is pretty dramatic. This feature lets you make international incidents with just one text.
Yeah.
And he adds, diplomatic immunity not included. It's a really vivid, maybe exaggerated way to show how badly translation can go wrong and cause real problems.
Yeah, that example definitely makes an impact. Does he apply the same kind of criticism to things like Genmoji and Image Playground?
Absolutely. He calls the first part Genmoji disasters. Claims you can create emotionally disturbing emoji that will haunt your dreams.
Okay.
He really lays into the descriptions. Uncanny valley faces, nightmare fuel guaranteed. He clearly finds the results creepy, not fun or useful.
And the image generation, image playground, same story.
Pretty much. Mergel says it just generates abstract blobs that vaguely resemble what you asked for.
Vague blobs.
Yeah, and he lists common errors he sees as standard. Extra finger standard, horrifying face melting included. He presents these not as rare mistakes, but as typical outcomes.
Yikes. Extra fingers do seem to pop up a lot in early AI images. But he mentioned something else too, right? Something about inappropriate suggestions.
Ah, yes. Inappropriate surprises. This one points to the potential social awkwardness, or worse. Mergel warns about getting random age-inappropriate suggestions in group chats with grandma.
Oh no, you do not want that happening.
Exactly. He calls it an instant regret button, a potential family holiday ruiner. It highlights how these AI tools, integrated into personal chats, could create really uncomfortable situations, especially across different age groups or sensitivities.
That's a very specific and frankly relatable fear about AI messing up in a social context.
Okay.
Shifting focus slightly, Mergel also takes issue with a specific new app.
Yeah, the new Games app that no one asked for. That's literally how he titles the section.
Ouch. What's his main complaint about it?
First off, that once you download Games app, apparently it can't be deleted.
Ah, the bloatware argument.
Exactly. Mergel calls it a forced relationship. That lack of user control is a common frustration.
And what does the app actually do, according to him?
Well, he says it pushes game recommendations, specifically games that cost $9.99 but are free elsewhere. So he sees it as just trying to sell you stuff that isn't even a good deal.
Okay. And he warns about linking payment details.
Yes. He claims if you link credit card, your money or allowance will disappear faster than your social life. It plays on that fear of easy in-app purchases leading to overspending, maybe aimed at younger users.
So his overall verdict on the Games app?
He thinks users will just abandon app and return to playing real games on other platforms. He basically sees it as a failed attempt to muscle into gaming with an app nobody wants and can't get rid of.
Got it. So Mergel wraps all this up, right? How does he summarize the total impact and what's next from his perspective?
Yeah, he brings it all together, starts with the cost. He mentions the $1,299 base iPhone cost and ties it back sarcastically to the interface for the privilege of seeing through your apps.
So the high price is just to enable these features he thinks are terrible.
That's the implication. Then he circles back to battery life. Claims you only get 3 H'ers with liquid glass on, adding that sarcastic progress again. A clear statement that he believes these features wreck battery performance.
And his final word on innovation itself?
This is probably the most direct statement in the whole document. He rates actual innovation at 0%. 0. Contrasting it with 100% recycled marketing buzzwords.
Wow, so absolutely no credit for genuine progress. It's all just spin, according to him. And he ends with a prediction.
A very cynical one. Stay tuned for next year when we add another camera and call it revolutionary.
Okay, that last line really drives home his whole argument, doesn't it?
It really does. Mergel's entire perspective, as laid out in this document, is that these big announcements, the liquid glass, the Apple Intelligence, the apps, they're not real steps forward.
Right.
Instead, he argues they bring in features that are flawed, maybe buggy, definitely costly, both in money and usability, like battery life. And it's all driven by marketing hype, not actual user benefit or tech breakthroughs. Is an incredibly negative take.
And looking at this specific, very critical view is useful, right? It acts as a kind of counter-narrative to the usual hype you get around big tech launches.
Exactly. It makes you stop and think, okay, wait a minute. Consider the practical side, the potential downsides, what innovation even means anymore, like Mergel frames it here. It encourages you to look past the glossy ads and ask, what does this really do for me? And what's the catch?
It's about critical thinking, basically.
Yeah.
Questioning the narrative, evaluating things based on real-world impact, not just the shiny promises.
Exactly.
So that brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on, and it comes straight from Mergel's conclusion. He ends by predicting the next big thing will just be adding another camera and calling it revolutionary. Now, considering all the critiques we've unpacked from his document today, the focus on surface-level changes, the usability problems, the alleged lack of real new capabilities, does that cynical view of incremental updates being passed off as innovation resonate at all with how you see tech evolving? And based just on the arguments in this source, what kind of innovation does Mergel seem to think these companies should be aiming for? Something to think about next time you see a big product launch.